Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for coming back to A Few Short Minutes, the pod, where I want you to remember it only takes a few short minutes a day to actually rewire your brain. Today, we've got Alyssa Booth, who is an MA LPC, as you can see. Hi, Alyssa. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So I'm going to give you guys a little bit of information about Alyssa. She's a licensed professional counselor and an empowered body coach. She's the owner of the Nourished Mind Counseling and Wellness. It's a virtual private practice that serves the good state of Tejas. We're going to let her be on this podcast, even though the Sooners kicked UT's butt this weekend, but that's okay. She provides counseling through her private practice, as well as other services, including community psychoeducation, workshops, webinars, mental health courses, coaching services. Her approach is to bring it all to the table, which I love, where there are no topics off limits. Also love, so you can have a real conversation about real issues, which is exactly why I wanted her here today. Her mission is for you to step into your authentic self and live in line with your values, time, and energy without the diet culture BS, unrealistic standards placed on women and moms. Hello. She believes that you deserve a safe space to heal, which is why she's created Empowered Body Collective. So the Empowered Body Collective is a safe community for women to work through healing relationships with the mind, food, and body through the support of Empowered Body Community, comprehensive curriculum, and live coaching with Alyssa. You will feel more confident in yourself and your body, learn to eat joyfully, mindfully, and healthily while living in a more peaceful and present life. And I love that so much. If you guys have been following me on any platform for a long time, you know I'm super honest about my emotional eating. And even as a coach, that is one thing that I still struggle with to this day. Not as much as I used to, but now that I'm in my mid-40s and perimenopause has taken hold, losing the weight and the damage that I did to myself in my 30s has been really, really difficult now. So if I could go back to myself at 35 and find Alyssa, I would have, because now at 46, the damage is really showing that I did at 35. So Alyssa, talk about that. Talk about women and emotional eating and why, like, that's for some of us, the go-to.
Oh gosh. Okay. So I'm going to start with body trust, because I think that's really when we start to see these disordered eating patterns and really like the deterioration of our own confidence and self-image, right? A lot of times I ask people, like, when was the last time you actually loved yourself and just were able to show up as yourself? When was the last time? Probably not like when you were a toddler, when you were a small child, right? When you just kind of like didn't care. You know, you see kids acting a fool all the time, right? They don't care about what they look like. And at some point in our lives, we are told that we should care, or that something is wrong with us, right? Or that we're being too loud, or we're being too much, or we're not being enough, right? Or we're eating too much, or why are you having seconds, or your body has changed, or you've gained weight, or you don't want to gain weight, right? So all of these messages come up and really tell us that we cannot trust ourselves in our bodies. We cannot show up as we are. And so we start to hide these pieces of who we are and try to show up as what society tells us is good and right. But the problem with society is that we are constantly being pushed and pulled into like conflicting and competing expectations, right? It's never enough. And I think that's one of the hardest parts about being a woman in our culture, is that like, no matter what you do, it's never enough, right? We can we're always going to be chasing that. And so that leads to a lot of feelings of, being disappointed in ourselves, being disconnected from ourselves and our needs, feeling shame, feeling anxious, feeling really overwhelmed, because it's really hard to juggle all of these roles. And so within that, we have diet culture, right? Which is a hyper focus on our appearance as the end all be all to our health, and like wellness culture and like all of that kind of stuff. And so I think what happens is that as we are hyper focused on our appearance and dieting, and we don't have tools to deal with our emotions, we turn to food for comfort, right? So we're not only like mentally and emotionally depleted, but we are told that physically depleting ourselves of food is also normalized and celebrated and reinforced. And what's waiting for us downstairs? Candy corn, chocolate, the brownies from yesterday's potluck or whatever. And so we find ourselves really turning to food for comfort, because what we really want is to escape. What we really want is to just be ourselves. And it becomes so overwhelming. We're just not taught the skills. We're not taught how to listen to ourselves, how to meet our needs. I feel like women are constantly on overdrive. I had a meeting with a few women yesterday for World Mental Health Day. That was yesterday, which was October 10th. And I asked the question, like, how are you doing? Everyone's like, oh, I'm doing good. And I was like, well, how are you really doing? We're like, I don't know. I haven't asked myself that. Like, when do I ever check in with myself? When do I ask how I'm really doing? And so we're kind of out here just kind of winging it,
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Yeah, absolutely. Winging everything. That meme is like, I'm winging everything. My life, my eyeliner. Like,
Yes.
it's so true. It's so true. And that's why I help women in my coaching practice. I help women struggling with exhaustion, indecisiveness, and loss of identity because they put everybody else ahead of themselves. So they feel that anxiety, they feel that overwhelm. They're probably a little pissed off because I know that was me years ago, where I was caretake. I mean, you guys know I'm a recovering people pleaser, and I grew up in a codependent household. And then my oldest was born without an immune system, which just added fuel on an already glowing bonfire, because then I had to be in that caretaking role, let alone choosing it. And so I lost myself in all of those roles and all of those hats, and I didn't know who I was, let alone how she was actually doing. And so, yeah, food was it for me. It was my reason to numb out. It was my way of numbing out, because if you drink too much, it's kind of looked down upon. If you go and use street drugs, it's kind of looked down upon. But if you have Ben and Jerry's every night, nobody knows.
Nobody knows,
Nobody
right?
knows.
And that's so interesting too, right? Because that can be like our dirty little secret, right? And I hear this a lot with just the clients that I work with too. It's like, okay, at the end of the day, my family's asleep, my kids are in bed, I'm cleaning the kitchen, and I just go into the pantry, or I go into the freezer, or I grab my snack and I hide the wrappers, and you know what I mean? And then like nobody knows about it. But then you're also carrying around a lot of the guilt and shame from that too, right?
Right.
I work a lot on overcoming shame. And one of the things about shame is that it thrives in secrecy, right? And the minute that you're found out, so to speak, it can be a very vulnerable experience, because it's like, oh, hey, your partner's like, where'd all this ice cream come from? And you're like, I don't know. It's so weird that that's in there.
Strange.
Right? So strange. I don't know. Maybe it's the neighbor coming in, throwing their Ben and Jerry's in my trash.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah.
but we, and I think that because I think our society is getting better about speaking out on, how overwhelmed we are and stressed we are. I think
Mhm.
sometimes we tend to make jokes about it and use humor to deflect, as we just were. But I think it's real. It's very serious. People are struggling.
Oh, yeah, legitimately. I used to say that Ben and Jerry's are the only men that never let me down. But they did, because I gained 60 pounds. So thank you, Ben and Jerry's, for that. Um, yeah, and it's funny you bring up the mental load of motherhood, because I was just talking to a client literally 5 minutes ago about the mental load of motherhood, and how 2 years ago that wasn't even a label. 5 years ago it wasn't a thing. 10 years ago it wasn't even a concept or an idea or even recognized. And now we're having that conversation, which needs to happen more and more and more. Because when I heard that label like 2 years ago, or that concept, I was like, holy crap, there it is. Like, that's it. That's the thing. And it needs to be a conversation that we're having more and more and more, because it absolutely is contributing to our overstimulation, our overwhelm, our overdrive, all the overs, all the overs.
Right.
So talk about how you see the mental load of motherhood show up in your practice, whether it's your counseling practice or your coaching practice.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I've been doing a lot of speaking, so I'm like kind of referencing a lot of things that I've been doing. But
Good.
last week I spoke with a group of moms about this very topic. And I think it's so great that we are able to label that and recognize it and acknowledge it. Because when we do that, and this is true for our emotions too, is that then we can start to problem solve our needs and say, oh, this is what it is. It's not that I'm just incompetent or incapable or being over dramatic or being overly sensitive, because we tend to invalidate our needs and our feelings a lot or minimize them.
Right.
But we can really speak into this. These are all the things I'm doing. These are all the things that are running in my head 100% of the time, right? I don't really
Yeah.
have that time to rest. Um, Something that I reference a lot because I run high on anxiety. I also struggle with people pleasing, perfectionism, all the things. Overdoing it, overachieving, right? You're my people. So,
Burned out, gifted people. Yeah, that's me. That's
yeah,
me.
I've been saying the phrase, I run on high anxiety and caffeine, and I'm just like, my brain is constantly going. But I think once we can recognize it, we can really validate ourselves. And I think that's such an important step is like, okay, like I'm not just a stay-at-home mom, right? Like I'm thinking about laundry and soccer practice and snacks and doctor's appointments and rescheduling things and like all these different
Yeah.
things that we just do. We just do. And I had a conversation with someone yesterday who was like, "Oh, like I just manage it. I'm just the manager. I just manage everything and I'm really good at it." And I'm
Oh, I
like,
bet you are.
"Yeah." And she's like,
That's not a great thing, by the way.
and
Not a
she's like,
great thing to
every
be.
few months I have a mental breakdown. Every few months I kind of reach my and I was like, "So you're not really managing it
Just randomly.
well if you're getting to the point where you're having a mental breakdown." And I think something that's really important that I teach my clients in counseling and coaching is to check in with yourself. How often do you just sit back and say, how am I doing? What am I needing? Am I even comfortable with where I am right now? Do I need a blanket? Do I need some water? How can I meet an immediate need that I have right now? And when we build back trust with ourselves, it's met in small moments of connecting to ourselves, small moments of connecting to our needs, and small moments of meeting those needs. Even if it's just like, you know what, I just need like 5 minutes where no one needs me, no one talks to me, no one asks me a question, where I'm not bombarded by like dogs barking and the TV on, the dishwasher going, right? Where I'm just here sitting with myself and just connecting with myself, right? I think it's hard when we are so busy. I have two businesses. I'm married. I have two dogs that are crazy. I have two kids. I have all these things going on. And so the last thing on my mind is like, Alyssa, sit down and chill. Like, what even is that concept? You know what I mean? Um, and I think it's hard when your day is so filled and jam packed, but we have 3 minutes, we have 5 minutes, we have 60 seconds where we can check in with ourselves. Say, okay, what is it that I'm needing? What is like currently going through my mind? What are things that I maybe need to let go of that are just taking up brain space and capacity that aren't mine to carry today? You know?
Yeah,
Um,
for sure.
and I think that can be
Um, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. That's why we lock ourselves in the bathroom for 5 minutes, right?
yes.
To get that, to get that. What I'm super present to it with your manager person is that absolutely was me because if I managed everything, I knew what to expect. And
Mm,
if I knew what to expect, I wouldn't get hurt, which is not true. It's not true. It was just a defense mechanism that I was trying to do. And it didn't work. It didn't work. I ended up divorced anyway, you know? Um, and even in those 5 minutes that I would lock myself in the bathroom, um, what I've come to realize now after 9 years of therapy is that I would intellectualize my emotions versus feeling them. And I think that is very true for a bunch of us mom managers who don't have time to do anything, right? So talk about what that actually is and what emotions actually feel like versus intellectualizing them.
Yeah, I think it's really, so this is actually something that I'm working on with my own therapist, because I intellectualize my emotions as well. And I think in my counselor hat and role, I'm really good about helping other people, but I'm really bad about helping myself.
Yeah.
And I think that that's kind of true for a lot of people who are like type 2 Enneagrams, or like play the helper role, or the people pleaser, the codependent, all of these different things. And so for me, I think one of the biggest barriers is I don't have time to feel this. I don't have time. And sometimes it's like I don't even have the capacity to like feel this emotion in its entirety and like sit and like cry, or do something that I need to do to really like release that emotion. Um
Right.
it's like I don't have time for my feelings right now. I need to just do it. I can acknowledge that I have feelings, but I don't really have the time and energy or capacity to like sit with that feeling. And so something that I have found really helpful is doing the check-ins with myself. What is going on? Um, how am I feeling this in my body? What is lighting up for me in my body? Where am I feeling this stress? And so something as simple as, for me, I carry a lot of my stress in my neck and my shoulders. So like I'm always in pain there. And so even like right now, as we're having this conversation, I'm a little like hunched over. And so something that could even just release some of that stress and tension is rolling your shoulders back, kind of getting more comfortable in your chair, getting your lumbar pillow, because that's what you need as you get older and have multiple children, is you need back support, right? But just kind of like getting comfortable with yourself and starting to notice, where in your body are you becoming activated? What do these emotions feel in your body? Um, and starting to label your emotions as what they are, not what you think they are. So, for example, I could just label, I just be like, oh, well, I'm just like really sad. Okay. Sadness is going to feel different and have a different emotional need than, let's say, disappointment, right? So they can kind of be categorized like, yes, when I'm disappointed, I might also experience sadness. But disappointment is completely different and has a different emotional need and emotional like experience than sadness, right? And then who am I disappointed in? And what does that do for me? So really kind of trying to identify, what is it that I'm really, really feeling here? Um, Obviously, I'm going to do a plug for therapy, because therapy helps to have
This is the
emotional
place to do
awareness.
that.
Because
Yeah, for sure.
I think that sometimes we just are like, I'm either happy or I'm sad or I'm like angry, and like those are like the three emotions that we circulate from or circulate through, and it's like there's so many more emotions than just those three. Or like I'm anxious, I'm sad, I'm happy. Um, or like if you're thinking about, what's that movie with all the little emotions? What is it called? Inside Out.
Inside Out.
Inside Out. It's
Great
like,
movie.
yes, great movie, but those are just a few emotions. Those are just like the core, 5 core emotions. I'm hoping that they make
They are.
I
They're
think
making
they're
it too.
making a part 2, because I hope more emotions show up so we can use that and talk about it, because I think we are not aware of how we feel. One, because we're not checking in, and two, because we're mislabeling how we feel by kind of saying, well, I'm just sad. Well, I'm just anxious. And you might be that, but what's really going on further beneath the surface? And are you allowing yourself to feel and experience that emotion? And what is your need? And can you meet that need?
Yeah, the first emotion that I was really present to, that was a surface emotion, was anger.
Mm-hmm.
That's the really where my understanding began years and years ago, that anger is actually a surface and a secondary emotion, because what's underneath it probably isn't as easy to experience or as publicly accepted. And
Mm-hmm.
so, you just become angry, you express it in anger versus saying that you're disappointed, or for me, it was a lot of resentment,
Mm-hmm.
which blew my mind a little bit ago when Brene Brown said she just learned that resentment was actually in the jealousy family and
Mhm.
not in the anger family, because it's expressed as anger, but
Mhm.
it's actually, I was jealous that I was taking care of everybody and nobody was taking care of me, including myself. And I had a ton of resentment for many, many, many years because of that reason. And I didn't realize that that's actually what it was. And because I was just
Yeah.
angry instead.
And we have a lot of judgment toward those emotions. Like, if I say I'm jealous, it's like, oh, why are you like the crazy jealous girl? You know what I mean? Like, we have these judgments based on how society has kind of portrayed certain emotions. And we don't want to show the vulnerabilities that we have, right? It's easier for me to say, oh, I'm anxious than like, actually, I'm feeling really insecure right now, because it's like, oh my gosh, she's so insecure, right? Like, we have
Right. Yeah.
judgments and we don't want to be seen as this jealous psycho person or whatever it is, quote unquote, right? Because that's not necessarily the best terminology, but that's kind of what we say in our
But
head.
that's what we say.
Mhm.
Exactly. It isn't the best terminology. And you know that from a professional standpoint. And we are trying to normalize appropriate language now as a society, which I love. But that is what we say still.
Mhm.
Oh my God, such a psycho, or God, you're
Yeah,
such a narcissist. And it's
yeah.
not, you know. But yeah, so no wonder we still keep it to ourselves and not even admit it to ourselves. Um, Talk about how that non-admission of what you're feeling, or shoving it down and stuffing it down, how that creates cracks and gaps in self-trust, and what that does to erode it.
So when we are not able to recognize and acknowledge our emotions, we do feel like we are like there's so many things going on in our bodies and we don't know what to do with it. And I think as a result, we try to get control. I don't want to feel emotionally out of control. I don't know how to recognize and or manage and tolerate my emotions. But what else can I manage and tolerate? And so sometimes that's trying to be perceived in a certain way. So like the overdoers, high achievers, type A kind of people like myself, where people are like, "Oh my gosh, you're doing all these things. Oh my gosh, look at all that you're doing." And I'm like, "Yeah, look at me." Like,
Yeah, look at
let's look at
me.
all the great things that I'm putting out there,
Give me all
or
the external validation,
yes.
please. I need it.
And that's so true for like social media, we put our highlight reel on social media, I think we're becoming a little bit more open to the idea of being vulnerable and more real and showing up as ourselves, but for the most part, I would say a lot of people are just putting their best foot forward. And that can really lead to a lot of things like, chronic dieting, overeating, overdoing, feeling like you can't drop the ball, so to speak. And that puts a lot of pressure on people.
Yeah, absolutely. I have a client who um, is trying to become a coach. She works 60 hours plus in her pay the bills job. She also takes care of her aging mother and father and her aging husband.
Oh, wow.
Um, and I'm like, girlfriend, what is going on? She sleeps 4 hours a night,
Mm.
4 hours a night. And I'm like, how can you take care of all these people and you're not taking care of yourself? Here's the kicker. She's a brother and sister.
Mm.
I'm like, who told you that you had to be the one? Who,
Mhm.
who told you you had to be the one? She's like, well, I don't want to burden them. I'm like, burden them? They're parents as well. They
Mhm.
can make you dinner. They can bring that over twice a week. They can take dad to a doctor's appointment. Like, what do you mean burden them? But she literally cannot let go of that role because I think she's scared of who she is without it.
Yeah. And I think that when this is true for dieting as well. So I'm going to make a point with
Yeah,
all of
please.
this. It's true for dieting as well, because I think a lot of times we do receive a lot of external validation for these roles that we play. We receive a lot of external validation for like going on like this 21-day challenge, and like you've lost like however much weight, and you post your before and after picture, and all of a sudden you're getting like all of this attention and that external validation and reinforcement that this is what people expect of you. This is what people praise you for this. And we all want to be seen and valued and heard and, praised and validated and
Sure.
all of those different things. And so there's a grieving process to letting go of those roles. When we start to set boundaries, one of the hardest parts for me in setting boundaries was people are going to think that I'm so mean. I'm turning into a different person. And so I'm going to kind of have to grieve that old version of myself. People are also going to have to grieve that old version of myself. People might not like me with my new founded boundaries. People might not like me, as my body has changed, as I've either gained weight or gotten older, whatever. And, but to me, it's like that's none of my business. If they don't like me, that's not on me. I cannot sit here and like burn myself to the ground trying to make everybody else around me happy and like me and whatever, because that's exhausting. And what we do is we perform. It turns into this performance kind of thing, right? Like, well, I constantly have to be on. I constantly have to be doing. I constantly
Yeah.
have to show up in this way, or else people will reject me. I'll be disconnected. I'll be judged. I don't want to feel shame, So a lot of it too is like the avoidance of those icky emotions that don't feel so good. So it's all kind of going
Yeah.
back to the emotional experience of it too.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It is amazing what people will do to avoid shame,
Mm,
guilt, judgment, disconnection. We are tribe people. We are pack
right,
animals by
right.
nature. And so disconnection is one of the, shunning is one of the worst things that we could actually do to each other. And so we go to massive lengths to not do that, not have that happen to us.
Mhm.
And it's so funny that you were talking about performance and masking. I recently was diagnosed ADHD at 46. So, it's been there my whole life. I look back and I go, yes, yeah, yeah, duh. And my kids were diagnosed very young. And so why I thought I escaped, I have no idea. But you know and I look, and now I'm dropping that mask,
Mhm.
because for neurodivergence we mask even further.
Mhm.
And so now I'm dropping that mask, and it's amazing how people go, are you okay? Like, what? Yeah, why? Well, you're not your smiling self. Well, thank God. Yeah, I'm not, because that was a performance, that was a mask. I had a la-di-da personality, so you would like me more. That's not me. I'm very sardonic. I'm very dry naturally. And I went around smiling all the time just so people would think I was approachable and like me more. And now I'm not. And it's amazing how my old friends are like, are you good? I'm like,
Mhm.
yeah, bro, I'm good. I'm great. And they're just like, huh, something's off. That would be why.
Yeah.
That would be why. And it's amazing. You were talking about people not liking you when you set boundaries, and what I have to remind myself of, because I didn't even know what a boundary was until a few years ago. Because they weren't allowed in my house. They weren't allowed in my family. That absolutely was not okay. And so I find the people who I set boundaries with, especially strong boundaries now, are the ones that benefited me the most from or benefited from me the
Not
most for not having them, for sure.
Absolutely. And I think it's interesting, like the idea of being liked and validated, people pleasing, like all masking, all of those tendencies keep us socially safe, right? It keeps us feeling like, okay, we're in the crowd, we're in the tribe, like we're in this community. And so if people like me, then I've made it. And I think that we start to deny our authentic selves when we care more about what other people think about us than being our true self.
Yeah. What does that self betrayal do? Because that's what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like it going back to what we talked about at the beginning of our conversation, it leaves us constantly chasing something that we can never achieve. And that's exhausting. We're tired. You know, I think we have this idea that, oh, women, we can do it all and we can be it all and we can have it
Oh
all. But
yeah,
it's like,
that's
this
such a
is
lie.
exhausting. I'm tired. I don't want to do this anymore. I don't want to be chasing somebody else's dream or somebody else's version of who they think I should be or how they think I should be or what they think I should be or how I should parent my kids or what I should do in my career or how my marriage should be, or you know what I mean? All these different things. And I think when we're constantly bombarded by these messages of like selling happiness, you'll be happy when, right? All of these different things happen, all these different things align with you, which is why I really focus on values. Like, what are the things that are actually important to you? And how does that show up in your life? And how can you be filled in those moments?
Yeah, I love that. I love that. It's so true that I'll be happy when. But it's interesting, you guys, because you look at celebrities who have it all, right? And they're
Mhm.
doing what they love, and they've got millions of dollars and anything they want at their fingertips. And yet, a lot of them are on drugs. A lot of them have broken relationships. A lot of them, you know, die young,
Mhm.
by by unaliving themselves. And so, really, even they have it all, they don't. And yet we are constantly striving to get to that level, to get to, oh, I need five more dollars and lose 5 more pounds. That
Mhm.
okay, and when you get there, what? So if you
Mhm.
can't be okay now, you're not going to be okay then. That
Mhm.
money or that weight loss is not going to do it for you.
Mhm.
You have to do it inside yourself first. And I'm a firm believer that then those things come
Mhm.
because you're putting yourself first. And I know that's really hard. And I love that you said the do it all, have it all, be it all, because I really think that was a downfall of motherhood and
Mhm.
being a mother. I really think that when women went into the workplace and this do it all, have it all, be it all superwoman trope came into effect, that it really started degrading our sense of self then, and things got worse because it isn't true. We can't do that. We
Well,
can't.
and I think that we entered a man's world, right, where there was nothing set up for us to be able to thrive in that world, right? I mean, you see that like in the cost of childcare, the lack of accessibility for nursing mothers, the lack of maternity leave, paternity leave. I mean, like there just isn't a system set up in place for us to really be able to thrive as working parents. And so we've had to, kind of makeshift all of these different resources for ourselves. And it's hard. It's really hard. It's really hard. And so it, again, sometimes I feel like it's okay, we can never win at this. But for me, winning is return. I mean, it's not about winning. I don't mean to like kind of phrase it like that, but it's just about returning home to yourself, returning back to yourself and really focusing on what what do you need? What are your values? What's good for you? And that's not going to be good for other people, right? It's really hard to not compare ourselves when we are so connected. It's interesting because it's like we're so connected, but then we're also so disconnected because of how connected
Yeah.
we are. Like it's weird.
Yeah.
Um, but I think that comparison, the idea that we all have the same 24 hours in a day, we don't. Like my season of life right now is very different than when I have a 17-month-old and a 11-year-old. So before I had the baby, like my season of life looked very different just with one child and he was older and so our life was different versus now. And so my capacity and my time is different. And I think a lot of times we don't honor that within ourselves of like I'm in this season of life where yeah, I can't just like pick up and go to the gym and whatever, but I can go on walks. And that's good for me. That's a way that I can take care of my body versus somebody who is a fitness instructor. So they're always at the gym and like that's their job and they compete in competition. Like, I'm not going to look like that. I don't need to look like that. I don't need to do like that's not something that I want to do. That's not something I need to. That's not a desire for me. I don't want to eat the same food and weigh it out every single day. Like, no. I want my Ben and Jerry's,
Ugh.
I want my pasta. I want, you know what I mean? Like that's just and that's fine. And so I think that we just feel like we have to succeed in all these different ways, but in a certain way. And we're not connecting to what that really looks like in our lives. Because sometimes the way that I take care of myself might be like, yeah, I'm going to go on a walk. But sometimes the way that I take care of myself is like, you know what? I'm just going to get in bed early and like watch some TV and just chill because I just need to decompress.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And yet we scold ourselves if we get in bed earlier, we take a nap. That's been a really big shift for me lately. In the last year and a half that I've been working from home, is like if I don't have a session scheduled and I feel like I need to sleep, like, okay, take a nap. But
Mhm.
beforehand, I would have just absolutely ridiculed myself into submission of like, don't be lazy. Or, I went
Mm.
to bed at 8:30 last night because I was exhausted. It was just been a long, long day. And beforehand, I would have been like, no, got to do this, got to do this, got to do that. And gosh, you don't, there's not enough time in the day. Talk about Empowered Body and talk about the program as a whole. What do women learn? What are some outcomes that they get?
Oh, okay. I am obsessed with this program. I've been a clinician for 10 years and I noticed that there was kind of a gap between people who have like DSM diagnoses, eating disorders, right? So the people who have like an actual not an actual eating disorder, but like a clinical diagnosis of an eating disorder. But then there's kind of this area of women who, are chronic dieters, don't like their bodies, that don't necessarily meet that classification of a diagnosis, but would still really struggle, maybe eating your feelings, um, feeling really dysregulated and not knowing what to do emotionally, kind of going from diet to diet only to lose weight and then regain it and then feel really bad and shame yourself and then like, okay, I'm going to start a new diet and that's going to be the end all be all, that's going to be the answer, this is going to be it, because that's what we're sold. And so there's kind of this group of women again out there kind of winging it, not without any guidance. And so I wanted to really bring in a lot of my clinical experience into this coaching group. So I'm calling it Empowered Body Collective. It's a safe space for you to show up as yourself and get the support that you need to heal your relationship with mind, food, and body. So we go over a lot of mind body connection principles, which is really just kind of getting in tune with your body. What does that feel like? What are you needing? We do a lot of check-ins. So really kind of rebuilding the foundation of body trust. We go through the 10 principles of intuitive eating. I'm not sure if you're familiar with those, but this was
Some of
a
them.
yeah, so developed by Elise Resch and Evelyn Tribole, that are two registered dietitians. And that is such a great framework for you to be able to rebuild a healthier relationship with food. And then we go over a lot of the values work that I like to do with my clients. So, what are the things that are important and fulfilling for you? And I kind of give you like a blueprint of all of that. It is a 16-week program. So I'm with you for 4 months. There's a workbook, there's video modules, there's like bonus workshops. So I really wanted to create like this all-in-one whole enchilada. This is everything that you need to really dig deeper into your healing journey. And clients come out at the end, feeling like more brain space. I have more brain space. I'm not constantly feeling like I wake up, I weigh myself, I feel like crap about myself. I go run 5 miles on the treadmill even though I'm tired, and then I eat boiled chicken because I'm trying to lose. You know what I mean? Like it just takes up so much time and energy. And so my goal is for you to feel empowered in your body, for you to stop being at war with your mind and with your body, and start to come back home to it and trust yourself and really care for yourself with kindness and compassion.
It's amazing the amount of mental energy that is freed up
Mhm.
when you're not spending that mental energy, speaking, back to the mental load of motherhood, when you're not spending that mental energy on beating the crap out of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's why my program focuses a lot on negative self-talk and positive
Mhm.
self-talk, and eliminating, or at least decreasing it, because it's so much mental energy is spent in that negative headspace and that negative self-talk space that we don't even realize, because it's so subversive, because it's so insidious, because it's our own voice in our head now, even though it was given to us, like we were talking about in the beginning. We're, as children, we're carefree, we're wearing mismatched
Mhm.
clothes, one, wearing our Superwoman costume out, my kids wear their Spider-Man costume out. I didn't care. But I was told as a child, you're too loud.
Mm.
Gosh, Stacy, uh, gosh, calm it down. You're too loud. That was a really loud laugh. Even to this day, I have friends that are like, "Oh my gosh, don't laugh so loud," and I'm like, "No, f you," because it's a laugh, so I don't care. And they're like, people are looking. Like, yeah, it was a whole. It did a damage. It did a lot of damage,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
so now I spent years and years and years just playing that tape over and over and over again. And
Yeah.
so I've been able to break it, thankfully, because it did a lot of damage. And so I love that you have such a robust program that encompasses all this stuff, because that is what is needed in order to build that self trust again and be able to be an intuitive eater. First, you have to be intuitive to your own
Mhm.
body to be able
Mhm.
to tap into intuitive eating, and what do I need right now? And what does it feel to be connected again, mind and body? Because most of us are out there walking around on autopilot and disassociated, but we don't even know it. And I think
Yeah.
that's the kicker. That's the kicker.
Yeah, I mean, because we're really taught that that's normal. And so even just asking yourself that question of like, how am I doing? How am I really doing? What's going on? What are the thoughts in my head? Like I have a hamster wheel and it's constantly spinning around and around in my head. And that's just kind of my norm. And so if I stop to assess what's going on, then I have a better idea of what I'm needing and how I can really care for myself.
Yeah, absolutely. So I recommend everybody that today, just look at your breathing.
Mm.
Just look at your breathing. And that's where I started. It's like I know now that I naturally hold my breath, and
Mhm.
it's a stress response. It isn't natural, but that's what I do. That's my first sign of like I'm getting dysregulated, is I hold my breath. So if you're a breath holder, try to notice it today and breathe deeply just a few times. Go back to whatever you were doing and then check in later. Same thing. Check in, so a couple of deep breaths, go back to what you're doing, check in later, because that is a great way to bring your mind and body back to connection. So you can answer these: what do I need? How am I feeling?
Mhm.
In truth, and not in intellectualizing your feelings. Alyssa, what would be a tip that you would like to give people watching this?
Ooh, let's see. What would be a good tip? Um, I think that you can go really far with checking in with yourself. And I think you can go really far with, if someone offers help, accept it.
Yeah, that's huge.
You don't have to do everything. We don't get an award for being the most burnt out. So if someone offers help, let them help you,
Yeah. Or ask.
or
If you
ask.
have a friend that meal preps and you know that Johnny has soccer until 7:30 at night, hey friend, could you just meal prep one dinner for me, please?
Yeah.
You're not asking a bunch of them. You're not asking money. You're just asking them to add you in to something they already do.
And I think another thing, okay, so kind of expanding on that. I know we don't have much more time, but
That's
expanding
okay.
on that too. If someone's like, hey, let me know how I can help you, or let me know if you need anything. We're like, oh, okay, thank you. But we don't let them know. Let them know. Or if you're
Yeah.
one of those people that is offering, say, hey, I could, like, I feel like you're overwhelmed. Like, let me send you a meal. I'm going to Uber Eats you a meal. Let me
Mm-hmm.
know, do you want Chinese or do you want, chicken, whatever. I don't know. So give
Right.
them, right. So, I think that that would be helpful to normalize of like, I can accept help, but like when I offer help, I'm not just like, okay, let me know if you need anything. I'm like, hey, I would
Right.
like to do this for you. Because I do think that and especially as women in our community, we want to help each other. We know we need help. And when I offer help, I genuinely mean that I want to help you, right? And so I think that's important for us to be able to build that community that we need. Going back to the tribe, it's like it takes a tribe, it takes a
Right.
community, it takes a village. And we need to be intentional about not only being the village, but building the village and using that to our advantage to help us because we all need help. We all need
Yeah. I love that 1000% of like not saying, oh, if you need help, let me know, because that adds to that mental load that we were talking about in the beginning. That adds to the mental load of like, okay, Alyssa said, let me know if I need help. What do I need help in?
Mhm.
What help can I ask for her that's not going to, impose on her too much, that she's capable of doing, that oh my gosh. So just say, listen, I'm going to send pizza. Do you guys like pepperoni or sausage?
Mhm.
Like, just do it. If you
Mhm.
see somebody struggling, don't let me know if you need help. Hey, I'm going to meal prep this Sunday. Um, I'm going to do whatever. Would you like a meal or two? I'll throw it in for the kids.
Yeah.
Just ask. You guys, we're all, most of us watching this are mothers. We all know what we need. So I'm absolutely sure that the woman sitting next to you, who is also a mother, probably needs the same thing. So
Yep.
just offer. If you've got the space, if you have the bandwidth, offer. If you don't, please don't offer.
Right.
Please
Set
don't
your
offer. And
boundaries.
notorious for that.
Mhm.
Notorious. So I'm speaking to myself 10 years ago. You don't have to be the savior. You don't. You don't. And you don't get an award for being the most burned out. There isn't. So please, Alyssa, my gosh, this has been an amazing conversation. We could do this for hours and hours, and I love it so much. Tell everybody where they can find you, reach you, all the things.
Yeah, so I am most active on my Instagram, which is scrolling here below, Alyssa Booth _LPC. You can also find out more about my services at heyalysabooth.com. I do group coaching and I also do one-on-one. So if you're like, I don't want to do a group, I just want to dig into my stuff, we can do that as well. So you can reach out either way. You can DM me. I do check my DMs. And I don't have somebody doing all my Instagram stuff. It's me. So you won't talk to somebody
Fantastic.
random.
You guys, it'll be linked in the description below if you missed it here. I don't know why you'd miss it here, but hey, it happens. And so if you have questions for Alyssa, put them in the comments. I'm sure she'll be checking back. I will absolutely be checking, and I will let her know that they're around. And thank you so much for your time, your energy, and your effort today. I'm so honored that you took time out of your day to do this. I know you're a busy mom, and I appreciate you.
Thank you. Well, I love talking about this and reaching the people that it needs to reach. And so hopefully this was helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. So, you guys, thanks again for tuning in with your time and energy and effort. I hope this was helpful for you today. If you'd like to see something else, drop it below. Also, do all the YouTube things, please. Like, subscribe, share, all of the things. You guys know how this works. I don't need to say it. And be where your feet are, my friends. And I love you. I'll see you next time.